Where did you get this? How is this even possible? I cannot understand this. Johnson began speaking incoherently. Jack and his group could not understand what was going on anymore. After all, Johnson's actions did not match that of a normal person anymore. Has he gone insane? Celine could not help but whisper the question to Jack's ears. I don't know, but I guess he is close to insanity right now, Jack replied. He himself had already observed the blueprint, and so had Celine and the rest of the group. But still, none of them was able to react in the same way that Johnson did. So, they were completely confused why Johnson was reacting in such a way. But still, Jack was not patient enough to continue waiting for this guy to continue blabbering nonsense. So, he stepped forward and shook Johnson's shoulder. The guy had already even forgotten that the group was here, and he did not even notice when Jack approached him. So, he was a little frightened the moment that he felt someone touching him. It was only after a moment that he finally remembered where he was. He looked at Jack with a serious expression in his face as he asked, "Where did you get the blueprint from?" Jack on the other hand was completely dissatisfied by what Johnson was asking. What was wrong with where he found the blueprint? It was not as if he was going to tell Johnson that he had gotten the blueprint from the system, right? What does that have to do with you? Are you going to be capable of creating that armor or not? If not, you have to inform me right now so that I can go and look for another person to make this armor for me, Jack stated. Johnson was a little surprised by Jack's attitude. But still, although he was displeased by Jack's attitude, he decided to not be harsh because of the blueprint. He took a deep breath, stabilized his emotions before finally speaking. This is the first time that I am seeing an armor of this level. If I am not wrong, this should be at least at the level of the one that the supreme leader of our organization is using. So, I am quite curious about the origin of this armor, Johnson said as he looked at Jack. Jack on the other hand was surprised. He was not the only one, as even Samantha was surprised by that. She herself had already seen the blueprint, although she could not understand how to make that armor, but still, with the materials that are required in order to craft that armor, she did not believe that it was going to be at the level that Johnson was saying. Additionally, she herself knew what kind of a Sylvia and Phoebe possessed. They were superhumans, so, they had received armors coming from some big organizations. For that reason, she knew that it was difficult, in fact, completely impossible for a person within Stronghold number 17 to be able to make that armor. Are you sure that you are not exaggerating things here? Celine asked. Of course, although she had just started learning about crafting armors and other equipment, she felt that she should be a little more knowledgeable about these things. It was just that, during the time that she had seen the blueprint, she felt that it was a little more complex. But still, at that time, she believed that the reason why she saw that it was difficult to create that armor was simply because she was not skilled enough. Exaggeration? Are you joking here with me? I have never seen anything like this with my own eyes. But still, I have already heard a lot of information about the armors of this level. So you tell me, do you believe that a person of my level will go ahead and begin exaggerating things? Johnson asked in a dissatisfied voice. Celine did not respond, but she did not change the way that she viewed the situation. Can you craft the armor or not? Jack asked again. To him, it was not as if he was going to say anything more than that. In fact, he could claim that it was to be expected as this was from the system. Yes, he had been previously doubting that the level of this armor was low. But from the reaction that Johnson was having, it was clear that this armor was not of a low level as he had been thinking. Additionally, from the system, almost everything that he had gotten was considered useful to him. So, how was it possible that he would receive something from the system, yet whatever it was that he had received was actually useless? Johnson took a deep breath. He realized that Jack did not have the intention of telling him about the origin of the blueprint. He himself was a person that really wanted something challenging to do. But still, although he loved challenges, he was a person who knew how to admit when there was a problem that he could not solve. Just from glancing at the blueprint, he immediately realized that it was way above his league. So, there was no need for him to try creating something that he could not, or making promises that he could not fulfill. He handed back the blueprint to Jack and said, "I'm sorry, but I cannot do that. That is way above my level. If you want someone that is capable of making that, you will have to move to another stronghold that is at a higher level as compared to our stronghold." Currently, all the anger that was within Johnson before, when he thought that Jack's group had come over to prank him, had already disappeared. Jack was a little disappointed after realizing that Johnson could not help him in crafting the armor. It seemed that he would have to do it himself. Of course, It was not that he was not willing to learn how to craft the armor, but still, he felt that he had to complete the matters concerning the vehicle first. As for the matter of going to yet another stronghold to be able to get the person who was capable of creating the armor, that was not something that Jack even considered. He was not willing to go around, when he had not yet gotten his foothold. It was true that currently, inside this territory, there was nobody that was capable of threatening him. But, the same could not be said about outside of this stronghold. After all, there were a lot of people that were way stronger than he was currently. So, he was not willing to risk anything. Since that was the case, Jack decided to leave. But before leaving, he thought of something and asked, "Do you perhaps possess some advanced books about crafting?" Huh? Johnson was caught completely off guard by the question. He had not been expecting Jack to ask him something like that. But still, he regained his composure and said, "Yes, I do. But if I may ask, are you perhaps an expert in crafting equipment?" Johnson was currently having a friendly attitude. He had realized that for Jack and his group to be able to acquire something like the blueprint that he was carrying, his background could not be underestimated. But still, he was a little suspicious as well. After all, if it was true that Jack knew the value of the blueprint that he was carrying, then, he would definitely not have come over to ask a low craftsman like him to create an armor for him. After all, that armor was way above his level. Although it was true that Jack was cautious, even to the extent that he made him sign the contract, still, Johnson felt that that was not enough. After all, the contract prevented him from revealing the information about the armor, but that did not imply that he was prevented from telling someone else that Jack possessed something precious. But of course, he was not having any intention of revealing the information to him. He was a person that liked challenges, and he was always an honest person. So, since he had already signed the contract, then, he was going to abide by it. As for asking if Jack was a craftsman, that was something that he had asked on an impulse. After all, with Jack's age, it was definitely impossible for him to be able to be at a level above himself. At the same time, if Jack was actually an expert, why would he bring over the blueprint of the anti-laser armor to him? "I am not. But I should be able to become one if I begin studying right now," Jack responded honestly. Currently, since he was capable of learning things 100 times faster, he believed that if he begins studying about crafting, then, it should not be a problem for him to be able to become an expert craftsman of the same level as Johnson. As for going beyond him, that was definitely not going to be troublesome. All that mattered was time, and he was going to take just a few days to be able to reach the same level as Johnson, even going beyond him. Johnson blinked his eyes as he looked at Jack, but still, he did not say anything. In his heart, however, he thought that Jack was joking. After all, how was it possible for a person to become a craftsman in just a few days? Perhaps Jack was implying that he was going to become an expert craftsman in a few years? "Can I purchase them from you?" Jack asked. He was willing to purchase that information. Currently, it was definitely impossible to be able to acquire books of the level that a person like Johnson might be possessing inside this stronghold. They might actually be useless inside the big strongholds, but it was completely different when it came to a small stronghold like the one that they were currently in. "You want to purchase the books? There's no need for that. I will give the copies that I have to you as a form of a meeting gift. What do you think?" Johnson waved his hand as he responded. "You want to purchase the books? There's no need for that. I will give the copies that I have to you as a form of a meeting gift. What do you think?" Johnson waved his hand as he responded. After saying that, Johnson went back to the room that he had come from. After about 5 minutes, he came back with 5 books that seemed to be so old. But still, they were both neat and well maintained. He came in front of Jack and gave him the 5 books. Each and every one of them weighed about 1 kilogram. One could already imagine the number of pages that each book contained. These ones are the basics of craftsmanship. Although they are considered as the basics, these are the books that cannot be easily found in the market, even in the big strongholds. They were passed down from my grandfather. As where he found them, I'm not even sure about that," Johnson explained after he looked at Jack's strange expression as he looked at the books. He went ahead and gave Jack and his group a description about himself. It turned out that his family was previously a member of a big stronghold, but his grandparents died in the battlefield. And of course, since they had already accumulated some enemies in the big strongholds, without a superhuman strong enough to be able to hold off the enemies, his family had no choice but to retreat. They retreated to a small stronghold, but they had never expected that they were going to be attacked even though they had decided to leave the big stronghold. In the end, only Johnson's family remained out of the entire extended family. But, his mother died during the attack that was launched on them, something that was done secretly. Then, his father died later on due to the sorrows that he was undergoing, and the pressure added to the wounds that he had suffered during the time that they were attacked. After his father's death, Johnson decided to leave that stronghold. He came over to stronghold number 17, where he joined the Panthers organization. They nurtured him in terms of his personal strength, while he on the other hand put in a lot of efforts in order to improve his craftsmanship. That was how he had managed to reach the position that he was currently in, and of course, he really hated the group that had attacked his family back then. It was just that, he himself did not possess any kind of great strength that he could use to take revenge. That was actually the reason why he had focused on trying to become the best craftsman he could be. But, there were a lot of things that he could not understand without a person who could teach him. For that reason, he had not been able to improve for the past 2 years, and he felt that perhaps he had reached his own limit. So, he ended up focusing on trying to get the complicated tasks that he could help with. In this way, he believed that he might be able to get a person that possessed great potential, someone that was bound to become a superhuman. And if this person ended up becoming a superhuman strong enough to compete with the enemies that had attacked his family, then, perhaps he might actually have a chance of getting his revenge. Jack was a little surprised when he realized that Johnson was not hiding anything from them. It was clear that he was handing over the books about craftsmanship, but he wanted Jack to owe him a favor. Jack was impressed. After all, it seemed that although Johnson had some motives, he did not put them in the dark. So, his impression of this guy improved drastically. If it is just a matter of revenge, if I'm actually capable of dealing with the trouble that you are talking about, I surely will help you with that. Jack responded sincerely. Currently, it could be considered that Johnson was just making an investment, a risk that he was willing to take. He was not even sure if Jack could actually learn the craftsmanship within the books, but still, he had handed them over to him despite the fact that they belonged to his grandfather. Since they were previously from a big stronghold, that implied that the level of information inside these 5 books was not to be underestimated. Still, there was no hesitation within Johnson as he handed over the books to him. Johnson on the other hand was excited after hearing what Jack had said. It was true that he did not know much about Jack, but this time, he had decided to take a risk. Just the fact that Jack possessed a blueprint that was way above his league, then, that implied that there might actually be a chance that Jack was that from a big background. Of course, he knew that there was a chance that it was a wrong investment, but still, it was not as if he was going to go any loss. Although he was going to lose the original books, but he had made sure to make a copy of each of the book. So, he was not going to lose much, but if it turned out that he had betted on the right choice, then, it was definitely going to be something that he was going to be happy about in the near future. That should not possess all the information about craftsmanship. Give me your user ID so that I can send you a few documents that possesses the information about craftsmanship, Johnson said excitedly. After he received Jack's user ID, he immediately transferred the documents to Jack. The communication device that they were using was just like a normal mobile phone, possessing all the functions that it had, but it was way more advanced than that. So, by using the user's ID, a person was capable of transferring information from one communication device to another. It was just like how a message could be sent to another person. After receiving the documents, Jack nodded at Johnson and said, "We will be leaving now. Perhaps do you think it is possible for you to be able to make some equipment for my store? I'm currently running a store, and it would actually be good if I would be able to get a supplier." Johnson was a little surprised when he heard that Jack was actually running a store. He was wondering what kind of store it was. Still, with a helpless expression on his face, he looked at Jack and smiled bitterly as he said, "If I could, then I really would have done that. It is just that, although it is true that I am the person that is crafting all these equipment, but all of them belongs to the Panthers organization. And I'm not in charge of dealing with the business." Jack understood. But he thought of something and asked, "What if I provide you with materials? Is it possible for you to be able to make equipment for me? After all, although I want to learn to be a craftsman, that is something that is going to take some time." Of course, the sometime that Jack had mentioned was maybe a month at most. After all, he believed that being able to learn for 30 days, that was going to be equal to him learning for 3,000 days. That was enough for him to be able to surpass Johnson. If that is the case, then, it is not a problem at all. I should be able to craft equipment for you, but please, you have to make sure that you bring me some challenging tasks from time to time. Johnson replied with a smile. It seemed that Jack was not that bad after all. For him, it was definitely not going to be a problem to be able to craft several equipment. Most of the time, he was always free because he was not capable of getting the challenging tasks that he was always looking forward to. Although he really had another reason behind requesting for the challenging tasks, that did not imply that he was not into the craftsmanship. This was something that he had somehow gotten obsessed to after the 2 years of staying inside the Panthers organization without any improvement. Perhaps, if he was given a challenging task, he might be able to improve, who knows. After the two of them exchanged their user IDs for future communication, Jack simply received Johnson's user ID. Jack and his group decided to leave, after some simple introduction. It was only after Jack and his group had left that suddenly, Johnson thought of something. Could it be that he was intending to have me forge that armor because he wanted to sell it in the store? That is incredulous. If he put something like that in the store, it is definitely going to attract a lot of attention. Johnson understood Stronghold number 17 all too well. Although it might be true that the Butterfly organization and the Panthers organization were the two supreme powers within the organization, that did not imply that the other organizations were weak. Inside Stronghold number 17, there were actually a total of 7 organizations, and out of the 7 organizations, 4 of them possessed superhumans. That implied that, inside the Stronghold, there were actually 4 superhumans. Even Johnson himself knew that if Sylvia came to know about the existence of such a blueprint, she was definitely going to make a move in order to acquire it. And, with the appearance of armors that could only be accessed by superhumans, there was definitely going to be a commotion that was going to erupt within the Stronghold. It is a good thing that he is cautious. Additionally, it is not as if the armor is going to be crafted anytime soon. Johnson thought to himself as he let out a sigh of relief. Normal world, Azima. Not long after the Jackson Enterprise was founded, Jonathan took over the position as the CEO. After that, he immediately began making big moves from the beginning. Since he currently possessed the connections of both the companies that Jack had created or bought, together with the connections that the Jezda family possessed, he was able to stabilize his position as the next family head of the Jezda family. There was no competition. After all, even the assets that the entire Jezda family possessed could not match the Jackson Enterprise at all. So, although he did not have much competition previously, even all those that were planning to try and compete against him had already given up on that. As for the family elders that were thinking about helping the children of their own lineage in order to be able to get the position of the family head, they immediately gave up on that. After all, it did not seem that Jonathan required the influence of the family that match. He could ignore everything in the family, but still, he would be holding an important position. Other than that, it seemed that the economy of the country had begun falling. Jonathan was not sure about the reason, but still, it was as if the funds that came from the government had suddenly disappeared out of nowhere. Additionally, without any important reason, the taxes had been increased. And since Jonathan did not know that there was the existence of the 100 times income multiplier system, he really cared about the profits of the company. So, after realizing that the profit had drastically reduced, Jonathan immediately decided that he was going to begin investing in the other countries. Although it might be a little difficult to be able to gain a foothold there, but that was not a problem as of now. Currently, they were already monopolizing 5 industries in the country. And, they did not monopolize the industries using underhanded tricks. Each and every of the 5 industries that was dominated by the Jackson Enterprise was something that could not be duplicated. That implied that, although it might take some effort, but still, it was definitely not impossible for the Jackson Enterprise to be able to enter into several other countries. Of course, all that he had to deal with was the regulations that the governments of the several countries that he was intending to invest in had put in. If there was a country that put in some regulations that seemed too unreasonable, Jonathan would immediately cancel the investment plan that he was having. But of course, the majority of the countries had already accepted that. That was especially so for the Future Techs and the Rose Entertainment Company. These two were capable of creating a lot of job opportunities in their countries, and other than that, they were going to promote transportation, reduce the costs that were spent in using the fuel, and at the same time, provide a platform where the youths would be able to showcase their talents. Since Jack had already informed all the managers of all the companies that were under the Jackson Enterprise, each and every one of them cooperated with Jonathan. Of course, they wanted to see the rise of the companies that they were in charge of, enabling them to reach a height that they had never dreamt of. Benjamin, on the other hand, who was a little stressed. After the visit from Jack previously, he had decided to increase his efforts in order to look for his daughter. It was just that, it was a little difficult to be able to enter the stronghold domain. Additionally, although they themselves were actually possessing a group of people that was present inside the stronghold domain, but it was not as if they were all powerful. The number of strongholds that they could access was small, and accessing the stronghold was not everything. After all, after accessing the stronghold, they had to deal with the organizations that were present within the stronghold. That was something that was giving him a headache. Previously, he had just been asking for information about Anne's whereabouts. But now, he had decided to be serious. So, he was intending to use some spies in order to try and see if there was any information about his daughter. This was not just for the sake of his grandson who did not seem to take him as his grandfather, but this was also the love of a father. There was no way that he was going to continue staying idle, while his daughter was missing. But so far, all his efforts had not borne any fruits. This was something that was frustrating him the most. He was wondering just where Anne had disappeared to. It was true that he himself had never stepped inside the stronghold domain. After all, although there was a group of people inside there, and they had even began an organization of their own, but still, they were not capable of making the entire Jezda family to be able to move freely within the stronghold domain. Azima, Kartu City. Inside a deep forest, there was a facility that was located here. And, although it was true that the forest was not that thick considering that this was the central province, but the facility was not located on the ground, but it was located underground. The facility itself was modern, possessing a lot of equipment that were way above the normal equipment that could be found within the normal world. Several people wearing lab coats could be seen moving from place to place, some of them carrying reports that they had written, ready for presentation. Intensive research was being carried inside this facility. There were several strange plants and animals that could be found inside here, locked inside a cell that was fully surrounded by white walls. Currently, inside a meeting, there was a group of 5 that was discussing. 4 of them were wearing lab coats, implying that they were scientists. As for the other one, he was wearing meticulously a black suit, a white shirt, and a blue tie. His medium-length hair was combed backwards. He was a middle-aged man, with well-trimmed beard on his chin. Currently, his expression was not looking good at all. He looked at the 4 scientists and said with a stern voice, "You have been delaying the results. Do you know that I'm getting impatient right now? I have already begun utilizing the funds of the country, but they were not enough. Then, I went ahead and increased the talks that they are supposed to be paying, but the funds are still not enough. Are you trying to mess around with me?" This person was none other than the president of Azima, New Delhi. Initially, he was a good president with a good vision. Since the time that he took over as the president of Azima, he had improved the central province. His plan was simple. He was going to improve the central province first. And, after the central province was well improved, he was going to begin focusing on the other provinces as well. But suddenly, nobody understood the reason why he suddenly stopped all the projects that were still running. The funds that were supposed to be used in developing the country had suddenly disappeared without a trace. Some people decided to make some follow-ups, but nobody knew the reason why there were no results at all. It was as if the people who had decided to follow up on the matter had suddenly become dumb, not capable of speaking anymore. What the public did not know was that Newton was actually investing all that amount of money that he had gotten in a project. The project began a few years ago, but still, he had not gotten the results that he was looking for. "Mr. President, we are sorry to disappoint you. We have tried all that we can, but still, the results are all coming out negative." One of the scientists managed to speak. Newton's expression did not change, but still, he was not happy about what he had been told. He looked at the man and asked, "Are you trying to tell me that all the funds that I have spent in this project are going to be wasted? If you knew that you were not going to be able to complete this project, then, why are you accepting for the public to be able to recognize you as the best scientists within the country?" The lips of the 4 people could not help but twitch a little. First of all, this is a research, not something that has already been developed. So, it is a risk that we are taking, so, it is inevitable that losses might occur. Additionally, who knows that they are not going to be capable of completing the project even before beginning? Other than that, there is still a fact that you are the one that actually forced us to come over to work for you. Did we request for this? As for being recognized as the best scientists in the country, is that wrong? We are the best in the country, but who said that being the best implies that we are capable of dealing with every problem? Of course, those were the thoughts that ran through the minds of the 4 people. But none of them was able to say it out loud, unless they did not value their lives anymore. How long has it been? The project has not been successful. I want her to wake up. If she does not wake up, then I'm going to make sure that I kill all of you," Newton stated with killing intent coming from his body. What is wrong with the president this time? Just because his wife has been unconscious for several years, he has decided to use all the funds in the country to sponsor this project, just to wake her up. The scientists who were already trembling could not help but question themselves. What is wrong with the president this time? Just because his wife has been unconscious for several years, he has decided to use all the funds in the country to sponsor this project, just to wake her up. The scientists who were already trembling could not help but question themselves. Of course, although they thought in that way, they did not dare to say anything loudly. Otherwise, with the personality of the president in front of them, then, they believed that they might end up dead the following day inside a certain random ditch. Having already said what he wanted to pass across, Newton stood up and left the conference room. He was really irritated at the fact that he had been running the project for several years now, but still, the project was not showing any signs of success. But it was not just this that was irritating him. It was yet another fact that he had been given this mission by someone. But that certain someone was not providing him with the funds that were required in order to run the project. Initially, before he began the project, he had received the equipment that were of a high level as compared to the ones that were found in the country. Additionally, he had also received some fund to fund the project. But, as the project progressed, all the funds that were provided became fully consumed. He on the other hand had no choice but to start pulling in the government funds in order to sponsor the project. But, things were not working out, and the amount of money that was required kept on increasing. So, in a drastic move, he had no choice but to pull in all the government funds. This ended up causing an uproar within the government, as the opposition decided to take this chance in order to oppose him. But, he had already prepared for something like this. He was able to make them remain silent, and he gave them the permission of using their own authority. That was a specialist so for those people that belonged to the opposition that were within the government, to get the money if they wanted to fund a certain project. I guess I will have to look for that person. If it comes to the matters concerning money, I think that he is the only one that is currently capable of lending me the money. Otherwise, I don't think that this project is going to be completed," Newton thought to himself as he left the facility. Although he had actually threatened the scientists, he knew that this project was not that easy. Otherwise, if it was easy, why was it that it was taking several years, but there was no progress at all? He had only said that because he wanted to put a lot of pressure on the scientists, making them work even harder than before. As for killing them, unless he got better scientists, there was no way that he was going to dispose off of them. The target that he was having in mind was definitely Jackson Enterprise. That was the enterprise that had risen to the top in the country out of nowhere. Additionally, it did not seem like they lacked money, because they usually purchased things, no matter how absurd the price was. In fact, that was the method that they had utilized in order to be able to dominate the 5 industries. So, he believed that, since this group actually possessed a large amount of money, they should not be having much difficulty in lending him a few $100 billion, right? Stronghold domain. After Jack and his group went back to the store, Jack began reading the information that he had been provided with. At the same time, he was also keeping an eye on the person that was looking at the store, monitoring their movements. He was not sure in which organization this person belonged to, but since this person did not seem to be making any move, Jack decided to ignore him completely. Jack had just began reading when he suddenly thought of something. System, why is it that after I received a gift, there was no multiplier effect? That was the question that was bugging his mind. After all, according to the system, during the time it was being introduced, it claimed that it was actually capable of having the multiplier effect on any income that he got, as long as the income was legal. The compensation that he had been given after being chased out of the Alfonso family was also multiplied. So, it really did not make much sense to him that the gift that he had received had no multiplier effect. Currently, for the host to be able to have the multiplier effect on a gift that he has received inside the stronghold domain, the host will have to first of all get himself into the stronghold. Jack could not understand what the system was trying to imply. After all, he was currently inside the stronghold domain, inside a stronghold. Additionally, he had already gotten a user ID that implied that he was currently a member of the stronghold. So, what was up with this system claiming that he was supposed to get himself into the stronghold? That did not make any sense to him at all. The host has to get a position inside the stronghold. Currently, the host's position is not high enough. According to the system, the host has been lazy recently. So, this restriction was added in order to make sure that the host will not just continue lazing around. Jack could not help but blink his eyes in confusion. Lazy? How was he lazy? Hadn't he just been inside at the stronghold for 2 days now? He had already started a store, so how was it that he was considered lazy? The host has left all the works on management of the store to his subordinate and girlfriend. As for himself, the host is not working at all. What do you mean by I am not working? I am trying to gain some knowledge here so that I can be able to create the armor whose blueprint you gave me, Jack retorted. In any case, the host has to be active when it comes to working, so, after it is decided that the host has finally begun working, then the multiplier effect will be able to work on the gifts that the host will be receiving. Jack remained silent after the system prompt. It seemed that there was no way that he was going to convince the system. But anyway, he could not understand the logic behind the system's words. But it is not as if the information that he had received was that much important. After all, he was not intending on becoming a craftsman. Rather, the only reason why he was studying something like this was because he wanted to craft the anti-laser armor that he had received the blueprints from the system. Setting the matter aside, Jack continued to studying. The information that he had on craftsmanship was shallow. But it was good that the information inside the books that he had received from Johnson provided him with enough information. Together with the effect of the system of multiplying his learning speed by 100 times, he was able to grasp things that easily. Additionally, since his mind was improved after he became a superhuman, he was able to remember almost every detail as he read through the books. Jack believed that it was not going to take long before he finally got a grasp on craftsmanship. The only thing that would be remaining by that time would be the practical part of it. In the evening, Jack had already finished reading one of the 5 books that he was given by Johnson. Although the book possessed about 2,000 pages, he was able to grasp everything within it. The book that he had read possessed information about craftsmanship in general. It did not specialize in either weapons, armor, or other equipment. So, what Jack had learned this time was that there were some things that needed to be considered during the time that he would be crafting something. Jack was not the only one who was learning something. Celine had also been attracted to the craftsmanship. So, she had also taken another book and began reading. It was just that the one that she had taken was the one that dealt with communication devices. It was a specialization. While the two of them were dealing with studying, both Denali and Samantha dealt with the store. This time, they made a total sales of 13,500 star coins. It seemed that the popularity of the store had already begun increasing after the restocking. Currently, Jack's balance had already increased to 2,096,820 star coins. With this amount of money, Jack had already begun thinking of another method that he was going to increase his income. Currently, the problem that they were experiencing was the fact that the store that they were running was small. Since he had already decided that he was going to start an organization that was going to deal with business, then he had to start opening other stores soon. Of course, he knew that to be able to get a shop that was there for sale, that was something that was going to be a little difficult. Not only that, even if they found one, it was going to be expensive. But still, Jack had his own plans. The group was just leaving the store when suddenly, they heard someone addressing them. It seems that all of you came over here. Why don't you tell me how comes you were able to enter the stronghold? What kind of relationship do you have with the people of the stronghold? It was the voice of a female. A voice that Jack and the rest of the group were familiar with. It seems that all of you came over here. Why don't you tell me how comes you were able to enter the stronghold? What kind of relationship do you have with the people of the stronghold? It was the voice of a female. A voice that Jack and the rest of the group were familiar with. Jack turned around and realized that the person that had talked to them was actually the lady that they had met during the time that they were at the mercenaries' land. She had spoken up for them during the time that a certain group of mercenaries wanted to attack them. For that reason, Jack had developed a good impression of her. It was just that he had not expected that they were going to meet this soon. Jack was just about to reply when Celine beat him to it. Why do you care about how we were capable of entering the stronghold, or what kind of relationship we share with the stronghold? It is not as if it is something that concerns you, right? Celine could of course remember who this lady was. It was just that she was a little irritated at the fact that the lady was speaking to them as if she was holding a superior position as compared to them. When she was speaking in such a way, she was reminded of the time that she had met with Derek. That guy was talking as if he had everything under control, and that was something that irritated her. Huh? Ivy was stunned after hearing what Celine had asked. Well, even she herself felt that he had been a little impulsive in the question when she asked. The only reason why she had actually asked that question was because of the mission that they had been given previously. They had been given the mission of going to look for information about Jack, but it turned out that Jack was actually inside the stronghold. That implied that, if she did not see him going inside, then, they would have gone outside using the details that they had been provided, going ahead to search for a person that did not exist in the normal world. Not only would that have wasted their time, but still, it would have also prevented her from doing what she wanted. She had just entered the stronghold, only for them to receive a mission to go out again. And the mission that they were given was actually a mission impossible. So, she got a little agitated after seeing Jack's group, but she was still able to control herself, not mentioning anything about the mission. But still, the way that she had asked the question was a little off. Daniel had come out together with Ivy. She had stated that she wanted to stroll around the stronghold for the night, before going back to have dinner. So, he had decided to come and accompany her. But he had not expected that he was actually going to meet the person that he was told to investigate about. But he did not care much about Jack now, considering that the mission that he was given had already been cancelled. Why, you ask? Don't you remember that I am the person that helped you back before you entered the stronghold? How can you be so ungrateful? Ivy asked as she looked at Celine. She was also a little displeased by Celine's attitude towards her. Even though she knew that the question that she had asked was a little off the line, but still, she was a proud person. How can she just admit that she had done a mistake just like that? There was no way that she was going to do that. Why are you talking as if we had requested for help from you? Dealing with those clowns would have only been something that was going to consume about 1 to 2 seconds. And that is me trying to make sure that I don't kill them. Celine responded. If she really wished to deal with that group, using her telekinesis, she was definitely capable of dealing with that group in just a few seconds. Huh? Who is going to believe that? With that frail figure of yours? You believe that you can actually deal with mercenaries? Ivy asked as she looked down on Celine. It might be true that Celine had also began training when it came to fighting with Jack, but she had not undergone intense training like the one that Ivy had undergone. So, her body was just like that of a normal lady, though, it was just that her figure was improved. You went to test that out? Celine asked with narrowed eyes. Do you think that I'm afraid of you? Ivy questioned back as she took a step forward. But, she had just taken a single step forward when she was pulled back by Daniel. Ivy, you have to stop that. Daniel stated. He was not sure about the relationship that Jack and his group possessed with the people inside the stronghold. If that relationship was deep, then, it was definitely going to cause them trouble during the time that they were going to be inside here. They had been given a single month to stay inside the stronghold. But that was it. They were not offered any kind of protection by the people that were giving them the missions. So, they had to depend on themselves, being careful not to provoke anyone that they could not handle. Jack on the other hand patted Celine's shoulder. He was wondering what was the reason Celine was reacting in such a way. Normally, this was not the way that she was. What is it? Jack asked after looking at Celine. He could tell that Celine was actually not irritated by the way that Ivy was speaking. In fact, she was not even provoked by Ivy at all. It seemed that she was reminded of something that had provoked her in the end. After calming down, Celine shook her head and said, I'll tell you later on. I just don't want to think about that idiot. After hearing what Celine had said, Jack immediately got a clue about what she was talking about. Of course, she had already informed him about the incident where she had dealt with Derek. It was just that he had not expected that she was going to be bothered by something like that. Ivy on the other hand was immediately provoked by what Celine had said. Who are you calling an idiot? She had a mistake in the idiot that Celine was talking about. So, although she was being held back by Daniel, she really wished to charge forward and start beating up Celine. Jack on the other hand shook his head helplessly, coincidentally at the same time as Daniel. In any case, Jack looked at Ivy and said, she was not talking about you. Just about some random guy. Oh. Ivy finally understood. But still, she felt a little irritated at the fact that Celine was completely ignoring her. Jack was not willing to extend the matter. So, he looked at Ivy and said, as I talking of appreciation of what you did back then, you can decide to come to the store tomorrow. I will be giving you something that might be of some help to you. Raw ND Alpha SN Omicron V Epsilon L. C Omicron M. Oh. You own this store? Ivy could not help but be a little surprised. Although she had seen them closing the store, she thought that perhaps they were just employees here. But, if they were actually employees, how was it possible that they were capable of giving out the items inside the store? Yeah. Anyway, you can come tomorrow and choose a single item inside this store," Jack stated. After that, he turned around and headed towards the car that was parked not far away from the entrance of the store. Celine and the two ladies followed him. Ivy and Daniel were both left with their mouths hang open. They had already been inside the stronghold for an entire day now. But still, they were not capable of purchasing anything within the stronghold. After all, the currency that was used here was completely different from the one that they were using while outside. Other than that, even if they actually possessed the currency that was used inside the stronghold, they would not have that much that would be capable of purchasing anything inside here. Everything was expensive. After all, just a single star coin was equal to $10,000. It was only after a few seconds when Jack and the group had already left in their car that she finally came back to her senses. She finally remembered that she had not actually asked for a method of contacting the group. As if knowing what she was thinking about, Daniel said, "He already said that you can come over and pick something inside the store. So, there's no need for you to worry that much. It is not as if they are going to run away after making a promise, right?" "I guess so," Ivy replied absent-mindedly. But still, in her heart, she had already decided that she was going to make Jack and his group to bleed a little. She was going to pick the most expensive item present within the store the following day. Humph. That should be enough to make her not to behave arrogantly in front of me, Ivy snorted in her heart. After that, she continued wandering around together with Daniel. Basically, what the two of them were doing was window shopping. They did not possess the money to purchase anything, but still, they found some thrill in looking at the advanced technology that was present inside the stronghold. Additionally, they were also capable of seeing other things that could not be found outside of the stronghold domain. While they were taking a walk, Ivy could not forget about the promise. She had to make sure that she arrived in the store the following day as early as possible. The following day, outside of the stronghold number 17, a vehicle arrived. This vehicle was way more advanced than any vehicle that could be found within the stronghold. The moment that the people at the entrance of the stronghold realized that the vehicle was approaching, they could not help but be stunned a little. It was not as if this was the first time that they had seen a vehicle of such a level. It was just that, it was so rare for a vehicle of such a level to be able to come to such a small stronghold. They were already in the know that, if there was a vehicle that was at a high level than any that they had seen within the stronghold, then, they had to know that there was a great possibility that the people inside came from a bigger stronghold than theirs. They did not even try to confirm who it was that was coming over. So, the moment that the vehicle approached, they all moved to the side, as they opened the gate for it to enter. Anyway, it was not as if there was a possibility of a person or a creature being able to sneak into the stronghold domain. This entire place was controlled, and the entry of all the people was recorded. Other than that, even if a person managed to enter the stronghold domain, why would they enter a big stronghold to steal a vehicle couple only to try to infiltrate a smaller one? They did not see any logic behind that. Inside the car, Derek was excited. Finally, he had managed to arrive. He had been impatient during the entire trip, and now that he had arrived, he could finally relax a little. The old man already knew what this guy was thinking about, so, he began driving towards the direction of the Panthers organization. Anyway, they were going to start there, before trying to look for the traces of the person that they were told to bring over. Of course, the old man was going to make sure that Celine was protected from Derek. There was no way that he was going to allow himself to be used in order to attack her. Otherwise, he was definitely going to suffer the most, even though it was true that Derek's father had said that he was going to break Derek's legs if he decided to bring any harm to Celine. The group was heading towards the Panthers organization when suddenly, Derek noticed a familiar vehicle. That was definitely the same vehicle as the one that he had seen when Celine was leaving the normal world. With both excitement and anger within him, he looked at the old man as he pointed at the vehicle. "Follow that car immediately. We have to get that car right now. She is inside there. We cannot let her continue being inside there." Derek had already thought to himself that, since his father had already decided that he had to bring back Celine to the stronghold where his family was located, then, that implied that, he had already decided that Celine was going to be his woman. So, how was it possible that he was going to allow another person to be together with her? Additionally, it was not as if he was afraid of Celine or Jack. With the old man beside him, there was nobody in the entire stronghold that was capable of going against him. The old man had also noticed the vehicle. So, he did not say anything else, and began following the vehicle. To him, the most important mission was definitely to get Celine back to the stronghold. As for the matter concerning Patricia, that was not something that he cared about. Anyway, even if he decided to prevent Derek from doing what he pleased, there was nothing that Derek could do as long as they took Celine along. Jack and the group had already been on their way to the store. Today, Jack was already planning on using the 2 million star coins that he received in order to get higher level equipment and other materials. In this way, he would be able to increase the profit that he would be getting from the store. But, as he was driving, he realized that there was a vehicle that was following them. He could not help but frown a little, because they had already taken several turns, but the vehicle was always behind them. At the same time, Jack could feel that there was a hint of killing intent that was aimed towards him. It was just that, this killing intent was so shallow, in that, Jack believed that the owner of the killing intent did not have the capability of dealing with him. In any case, Jack decided to deal with the ones that were following them. It was not like the one that was always keeping an eye on them, but this guy, the one that was following them, was doing that without even trying to hide. Since that was the case, there was no need for them to play any more games. He found a place that was kind of a little deserted, before he stopped the vehicle. After that, he waited as the vehicle behind him also stopped. In the next moment, his eyes suddenly narrowed as he realized that there were two figures that had come from the vehicle. And, one of them was Derek, someone that he had not been paying much attention to. He was wondering who it was that was coming after them, but he had not expected that it was going to be Derek. He was wondering if this guy was really tired of living or something. As for Celine, the moment that she noticed that Derek was coming over again, she could not help but be displeased. This guy was quite relentless. After that lesson that she had taught him the previous time that they had met, this guy did not seem to have learned anything. But still, she was a little cautious of the old man that was beside Derek. After all, he was capable of taking an attack from her, and only taking a few steps backwards. Derek approached to the vehicle first. He was impatient, and the moment that he arrived at the driver's window, he knocked onto it. "Open up immediately. Get the FCK out of the vehicle. I have been itching to deal with you, but now, I have a chance of doing so," Derek stated as he continuously hit the vehicle. Currently, he did not need to hold anything back. After all, he was going to text Celine anyway, and, by taking Celine away, they were definitely going to offend Jack. So, there was no need for him to be patient or lenient on him at all. As for Celine, who was currently a superhuman, he did not care about her. How was she going to attack him with the old man here? The old man was going to take care of her in case she attempted to attack him. When Jack realized that there was a person that was hitting the vehicle in such a manner, he was immediately PSSED off. He had not completed his research on the vehicle, but it seemed that there was a person that was trying to destroy it. How could he tolerate that? Since Derek had been hitting the car without holding back that much, there was a dent on the door. And since that was the case, Jack did not hold back at all. He opened the door of the car with immense speed and force, knocking the unexpected Derek backwards. But still, the door of the car was destroyed further. But Jack did not care about that because the car had already been destroyed. So, what he cared about the most was to definitely deal with this stupid idiot. As he stepped out of the car, Derek, who was a little surprised and pissed off, suddenly charged for. He had already been irritated at the fact that Jack was together with Celine all this time, so he had gotten a chance of venting. Other than that, there was also the fact that Alicia was actually using him in order to be able to get close to this person. How was he going to allow a single person to target all the women that he wanted to marry? There was no way that he was going to leave this bastard alive. The moment that Derek rushed forward, the old man also suddenly realized something when he looked at Jack. At this moment, due to the anger that Jack was experiencing, although it was little, he had somehow leaked his superhuman aura. For that reason, the old man, who had not been paying much attention to Jack, suddenly realized that Derek was FCKED up by attacking Jack. After all, Derek was only at the 10th level of the ordinary human level, and he could not compete against a superhuman. "Stop it immediately," Vincent shouted, and in the next moment, he rushed forward. There was no way that he was going to allow for Derek to be injured. After hearing the shout, Derek thought that the old man was trying to prevent him from beating up Jack. But still, he was not going to listen, so he increased his speed. Jack, on the other hand, already realized that the old man was speaking to him. But, who was he? How was he just going to take a command from anybody? Without hesitation, he threw a punch towards Derek, who was already punching towards him. And in no time, the two fists collided with one another, before Vincent arrived. Without hesitation, he threw a punch towards Derek, who was already punching towards him. And in no time, The two fists collided with one another, before Vincent arrived. Bang! Crack! The moment that the two fists collided with each other, there was a loud sound of collision. And in the next moment, the clear sound of a bone crisply breaking could be heard. Ah! Bang! Then, followed by a miserable scream, Derek's body shot backwards. At an incredible speed, landing heavily onto a rock that was not far from where they were. Due to that, he felt that the bones in his body were about to break apart. Currently, not only had the hand that he had used to punch towards Jack had been broken completely, but Jack's punch had moved forward and reached his chest area. For that reason, several of his bones had been broken as well. And after he landed, the incredible pain that he was experiencing made him pass out immediately. But still, before he passed out, there was clear fear and horror in his eyes. Vincent, on the other hand, had just arrived at the area where the two of them were colliding. But he was a few microseconds late, and so, by the time that he arrived, Derek had already been blasted backwards. Although he changed his trajectory, trying to catch Derek's body, but since everything happened so abruptly, he was not able to grasp onto Derek. With both anger and fear in his eyes, he rushed towards the area where Derek had fainted. He observed him, and realized that, currently, one of Derek's chest area had already been collapsed. Other than that, his right lung had already been pierced by his own bones. That implied that, if he was not taken for treatment, he was going to die soon. After all, it had already become difficult for him to breathe, with blood being able to penetrate his lungs. The old man looked at Jack with fury. He asked, "I already told you to stop, why did you not?" Jack, on the other hand, looked at the old man as if he was looking at an idiot. Of course, he already knew that the old man was at the third stage of the superhuman level. Still, he was not afraid. It might actually be true that he was not capable of defeating the old man, but that did not imply that he was not capable of fighting against him. Additionally, it was not guaranteed that the old man was capable of defeating him. "Who do you think I am? Your lackey. Do you think that I'm just going to listen to whatever you say?" He attacked, and not only that, he destroyed my car. And do you know what makes me angry at him the most? That is the fact that he is having some thoughts towards my fiancée, Jack stated. After that, he decided to ignore the old man. Anyway, he had already given Derek enough punishment. He himself had held back during the attack, otherwise, he would have definitely destroyed Derek completely. But this was going to be considered as a warning. If this guy did not listen and came over again, then Jack would not hesitate to eliminate him completely. Vincent, on the other hand, looked at Jack. It was true that he himself was not expecting that not only was Celine a superhuman, but even Jack was actually a superhuman. This was something that was completely unexpected, so he had not taken any precaution when Derek was facing off against Jack. But now, it seemed that things were going to get a little complicated. If he wanted to take Celine together with him back to their family, then he would have to deal with Jack first. But what kind of background did Jack possess? After all, for him to be able to become a superhuman at such a young age, that implied that there had to be something that he depended on. That was something that the old man was a little cautious of. It might be true that they had investigated about Celine, before they were given the mission of bringing her back to the territory. As for Jack, they had not been given any information about him. That implied that Derek's father had not expected that there was going to be a person like Jack who was together with Celine. Still, the old man decided to put everything aside for now. He had to make sure that Derek did not die. So, he carried the unconscious Derek back into the vehicle, before he drove away. Currently, the only place that they could use in order to heal Derek was definitely in this stronghold. They did not have the time of moving to yet another stronghold. So, the old man immediately drove towards the direction of the Panthers organization. Jack, on the other hand, watched as the old man left together with Derek. At the same time, he decided that he had to look for a way that he was going to improve his strength, even if it was just by a single level. Of course, he was not planning on utilizing the 3 chances that he currently possessed. He wanted to abuse the system in order to get the resources that he wanted. But, it seemed that he had to play another game. Although the car was destroyed, only the door was having the problem. So, Jack got back into the vehicle, before driving back towards the store. He still had to deal with Ivy, before focusing on another thing. When the group got to the store, they realized that both Ivy and Daniel had already arrived. He did not say anything, and the group alighted from the car. After opening the door of the store, Jack looked towards Ivy and said, "You can go ahead and pick something that you want." After saying that, he entered into the store, before he began looking around. He was beginning to use the knowledge that he possessed. in order to see if there was something that was special, that could be exchanged for another thing, other than the star coins. Ivy on the other hand was immediately stunned after entering the store. This was definitely not the first time that she had entered a store. But, she found out that the stores that she had entered into before, some of them were not at the same level as this store. With her eyes shining brightly, she began looking at the items present on the shelves in the store. She wanted to make sure that she took the item that was the most expensive inside the store. This was going to teach Jack and his group a lesson. Daniel on the other hand looked at the items and he could not help but get amazed. At the same time, he felt his heartbeat increasing. He had not expected that not only equipment, but even several potions, serums and pills were present inside this store. Since he had already been entering the stronghold for the past 3 years, he had of course heard of several types of medicines and serums. So, he felt that this was a chance that was not supposed to be wasted. He began looking around, and finally, he locked his gaze on a single serum. That serum was one that was given to normal humans, enabling them to become ordinary humans. It was something like an awakening potion from the fantasy. Cell Stimulation Serum. It is capable of stimulating the cells of a person, enabling them to have an increase in strength. Can help a normal human become a 3-star ordinary human. Cost: 27,000 star coins. Although it was not the most expensive product inside the store, but it was the most important product to people like them as of now. After all, even if they got an equipment, if that equipment could only be utilized by a person of a particular star level of the ordinary human level, then it was going to be useless to them. Daniel turned around in order to inform his sister about this. But he was surprised when he realized that his sister had actually taken a pair of gloves. The reason behind that was that the gloves cost about 30,000 star coins. As if afraid that Ivy was going to make a decision of taking the gloves, Daniel rushed forward and snatched them from her. Ivy was just about to question her brother what was going on when he suddenly spoke to her. The most important thing that we can take inside here right now is that serum there. It is capable of enabling a person to become an ordinary human, Daniel stated agitatedly. Ivy blinked her eyes as she looked at her brother. She had already been told about the information of the stronghold. Although they did not possess that much information, but at least, they knew about the ordinary humans. And there was a categorization according to the power levels of a person. What Ivy currently knew was that the majority of the people that belonged to several organizations inside the stronghold at least possessed a certain amount of power. Even if they were just relatives, and not real members of the organization, the prices of the items here was not that high. So, it was not that difficult for the relatives to be able to acquire the serums for them from the stores, so that they could also become ordinary humans. Knowing that her brother was not going to talk nonsense, Ivy immediately took the serum. Then, she looked at Jack and said, "I'll be taking this." Knowing that her brother was not going to talk nonsense, Ivy immediately took the serum. Then, she looked at Jack and said, "I'll be taking this." Jack noticed what she had taken. Of course, he had already received the basic information about every item that was bought inside the store. So, he was a little surprised that Ivy had actually taken the serum. But that might have been expected considering that, in case anybody possessed information about the serum, then, they would definitely go for it. Additionally, Ivy was not a person who had become an ordinary human. So, if she used that serum, she was definitely going to become an ordinary human. "Okay. Do you want me to help you with the injection, or are you going to do that yourself?" Jack questioned. As for the matter of the price, that was not something that he cared about. Anyway, with the system, that small amount of star coins was nothing to him. Ivy thought about it for a moment before she said, "Can you help me with it? I would like my brother to have it." Huh? Daniel was immediately surprised by what Ivy had said. After all, he had expected that she was the one that was going to take the serum, enabling her to become strong. But, it seemed that she was thinking about him. Additionally, knowing the way that she was, the only reason why she came to the stronghold domain was in order to make sure that she became stronger, so that she could take care of the trouble back in the normal world. So, now that she had gotten a chance, he was expecting that she was going to grab it tightly, but he had not expected that she was going to offer the chance to him. So, for a moment, he did not know how to react. When Ivy saw her brother's expression, she knew what he was thinking about. "Brother, you have always been protecting me all this while. I'm pretty sure that if you take this serum, you will become stronger, and I will have a stronger person to depend on." Daniel was touched by what his sister has said. Of course, Although she was saying that she only gave him the serum because she wanted him to become stronger, so that she could be protected by him, what was the reason for her giving him the serum, when she could have used it so that she became stronger by herself? No, you will have to take this serum. It belongs to you, because it is something that was given to you. So, I'm not going to take advantage of you here. This is something precious, and I'm not sure if we can get a chance of getting another one like this. So, don't miss this chance. Daniel stated after coming back to his senses. Ivy was just about to say something, when Daniel looked at Jack and said, "Please, help with the injection. Currently, we don't know many people inside the stronghold. So, I don't think we can get anybody that is good at the injection." Although he possessed information about the serum, that did not imply that he actually knew how to inject it into his body or another person's. So, since Jack had offered, then, they had to take this chance. They themselves were broke, and even the food that they were eating was something that they had gotten from outside of the stronghold. Otherwise, anything inside the stronghold could only be purchased using the star coins. Jack did not say anything. He went ahead and took the cartridge syringe, before putting the serum into it. After that, he held Ivy's arm after disinfection, before injecting the serum into her. Of course, he possessed professional medical skills that he had received from the system. So, it was not a problem for him to be able to inject the serum, and knowing the correct place that he was supposed to inject it. Ivy did not feel the pain of the small needle piercing through her skin. Anyway, she was a person that had already engaged in several fights, so, she had suffered several wounds. After the serum was injected into her body, she suddenly felt that her body temperature had began rising, and other than that, she felt that there was a large amount of energy that was now coursing through her body, through her veins. For a moment, she began sweating. She was sweating intensely and that, the clothes that she was wearing had already begun getting drenched after just a few seconds of taking the injection. Additionally, the sweat was even dripping on her forehead. When Daniel saw this, he immediately became anxious. It was true that he possessed a little information about this type of serum. But, it was not as if he had ever observed a person getting the injection. Additionally, all those that had taken the injection were members of the stronghold, people that he was not capable of interacting with, to chat with to get their experience. Just wait a little bit. Her cells have been stimulated, increasing the activity in the body. For that reason, the amount of heat that is being released after the food and other compounds in her body are being broken down is quite high, Jack explained. Daniel nodded. But still, he could not help but continuously get worried when he saw that the condition was not calming down even after 2 minutes. It should take about 5 minutes before all the food and other compounds in her body is broken down completely. But, she will have to take in a large amount of food, before training intensely to make sure that the serum is completely consumed by the body, Jack instructed. Daniel nodded. Then, he waited, and after 5 minutes, true to what Jack had said, Ivy's body temperature suddenly reduced. At the same time, she felt that her body was full of energy, as if she wanted somewhere to vent that energy. Other than that, she felt sticky, with the sweaty clothes that she was wearing hugging her tightly. She really needed to take a shower. "Is there a place that I can wash up?" Ivy asked after managing to compose herself. Samantha was the one that replied to this. She took Ivy through the back door of the store, before they arrived in another room. This place possessed a bed, and another room that possessed the lavatory. Ivy immediately entered the lavatory, and took a shower. It was only after she took a shower that she finally remembered that she did not bring any set of clothes for changing. Luckily, it seemed that Samantha had already thought of it, and had brought her a new pair of clothes that she had purchased in a store that was just opposite this store. After she changed, she walked out of the bathroom with a new pair of clothing. Daniel took a step forward and asked, "Are you okay? How are you feeling?" "I feel so strong. Other than the fact that currently, I'm having some trouble in controlling my strength, but it is not that much," Ivy responded sincerely. "That's good. It seems that you will have to undergo some training during the time that we are here," Daniel stated. With that finally out of the way, they had already completed what had brought them over. So, the two of them decided to leave. "Thank you." Before leaving, Ivy made sure to thank Jack and his group. She knew that since Jack and his group were capable of giving her the cell stimulation serum, then, they were definitely not normal people. If that was the case, then, it seemed that she was not needed during the time that they were being approached by the group of mercenaries. But nevertheless, they had actually given her something as precious as the serum. So, she decided that she was going to take this as a favor from them. In case she got a chance in the future, she had to make sure that she repaid it. "No problem at all. Jack responded nonchalantly. It was not as if he cared much about this group. This was just going to be a one-time thing, not something that he was going to do continuously. Anyway, he was not running a charity. Wait, Ivy and her brother were just about to leave when they were suddenly stopped. They looked behind, only to see that Celine was approaching them. Celine herself had a good impression of Ivy. It was just that, back then, she was a little irritated, so, the two of them got engaged into a quarrel. But after seeing that Ivy knew how to say thank you after she was given the cell stimulation serum, she finally knew that Ivy was not that bad. Do you have the star coins that you are going to be able to use in order to enter the training area? Celine asked as she approached them. Not really. I was just planning on exercising at home. Ivy responded. Anyway, she knew that in order to be able to access the advanced equipment that were present inside the stronghold, she would have to pay with the star coins. But that was something that she did not possess. When you are ready for training, come and look for me. I'll be able to book for you somewhere that you can train. Additionally, you can try and go and register as a member of the stronghold, so that perhaps, if you don't want me to book for you a place for training, I'll be able to transfer the star coins to you, Celine stated. Ivy was left stunned by Celine's words. To say the truth, she had been expecting that Celine was going to mock her, but this was just unexpected. When Celine saw that expression on Ivy's face, she could not help but roll her eyes at her. Then, she said, "You can take this as a favor from me. You will be repaying me in the future, what do you think?" When Celine saw that expression on Ivy's face, she could not help but roll her eyes at her. Then, she said, "You can take this as a favor from me. You will be repaying me in the future, what do you think?" Ivy thought about it, and although she did not want to owe anybody else a favor, she had no choice. After all, being able to train back at home without the equipment was definitely going to be a little troublesome. Additionally, currently, she had already become an ordinary human. Although the effects of the serum had not completely taken effect, that was something that was going to happen soon. So, she would be considered as a person at the third star of the ordinary human level. She believed that it was not going to be that much difficult for her to be able to get the star coins in order to be able to repay them to Celine. As for the favor, that was something that she was going to hold on for a little while longer, and if she got a chance, she was going to repay it as soon as possible. Of course, that was the current mindset that Ivy was having, not knowing that the person that she was going to owe a favor to was actually a superhuman. For her herself to be able to get to the superhuman level, that was not something that could be predicted, unless she possessed incredible resources. Okay. And, where am I supposed to register as a member of the stronghold domain? Ivy questioned. It was going to be good enough if she was going to be given the star coins. After that, she was going to make sure that she spent as little star coins as possible, in order to ensure that they had something remaining. Maybe you should go there together with Samantha. She can help you know where to handle this, Celine suggested. Ivy did not refute that. So, Samantha accompanied her. She took Denali's car and drove the two to the area where she had taken Jack and the group in order to be registered. As for Celine, she did not try to waste the time that she had, in order to continue studying, but she would not have expected that by sending Samantha over, she was going to expose the location that they were currently in. Back in the area where Jack under the group had registered as members of the stronghold domain, currently, there was a group of people that had arrived. These people were all members of the Force organization, but they were from the big stronghold. In fact, they were actually from the headquarters themselves. The Force organization was an organization like the Panthers organization. But, unlike the other organizations that always fought for superiority within the stronghold domain, they were kind of independent. Other than the fact that they had to follow the rules that were set inside the stronghold domain, they did not have to do much, unlike the other organizations and families within the stronghold domain. Currently, on the topmost floor of the main building of the Force organization in Stronghold number 17, the group of 3 people that were in charge of the Force present inside Stronghold number 17 were currently standing in front of 2 people. Are you trying to tell me that you have not bothered to look for the location of that young man? Are you trying to mess around with me? One of the men that was wearing a black armor, without any insignia, but possessing his rank, 2 genetic structures questioned with a frown on his face. The 2 genetic structures on his armor indicated that he was actually at the 2nd stage of the superhuman level. That was how all the armors that belonged to the superhumans were. It was just that, inside Stronghold number 17, both Phoebe and Sylvia did not like wearing their armors if there was nothing important. We tried, but by the time that we acted, they had already disappeared. Additionally, they are always keeping a low key, and despite them being superhumans, there are not that many people that know about that fact, Matthias responded. At that time, he was so agitated that he even forgot about the fact that, since he was reporting about Jack and his group, then, he had to keep an eye on them. But, by the time that he reacted, Jack and his group had already left. The Force organization did not possess that much manpower present inside Stronghold number 17. For that reason, they were not capable of mobilizing many people that were going to look for information about Jack and his group. Additionally, they had to make sure that they kept everything as a secret. After all, if Jack and his group came to realize that they were being searched for, then, they might actually decide to move away from this stronghold, and move to another. It was true that it was not that easy to enter a big stronghold from another, but the same could not be applied about a person from a big stronghold, being able to enter a small stronghold. Anyway, there are two superhumans, so nobody was going to be able to prevent them from entering any stronghold that was at the same level as stronghold number 17. You are useless, you know, we were given an order of the highest level. We have to bring that young man back to the Force stronghold. The man with 2 genetic structures on his armor stated. The one that had given him the mission was actually the second in command in the Force stronghold. Additionally, he had been informed that they had to do everything secretly, making sure that they did not notify the other big organizations and families in the stronghold domain. Otherwise, if these families and organizations came to know that there was actually a young man who had already reached the second stage of the superhuman level, then, this was going to be a battle between different forces, in order to be able to recruit this young man into their families or organizations. Currently, the Force organization possessed an advantage. Since that was the case, they had to make sure that they took care of the situation as soon as possible. But, they had not expected that when they came over, the person that they were supposed to take back to the Force stronghold was actually not even available. Matthias was just about to respond when suddenly, there was ring at the door. A little irritated, the guy with the 2 genetic structures on his armor took a chair, and threw it towards the door. Bang! The chair that was made out of wood was immediately broken, instead of breaking the door. But, that was to be expected because the door was made out of a special alloy metal. Who the FCK dares to interrupt something as important as this? The guy shouted angrily. Matthias decided to take care of the situation. Currently, he was the one that was in charge of the matter concerning Jack and his group. So, he knew that if he continued staying here, then, he might end up getting beaten up. So, he might take this chance to take a break. He went to the entrance, pressed a button and the entrance was opened. In front of him, there was a middle-aged man who was quite anxious. Of course, although he had not heard the voice coming from inside, but still, he knew that currently, there was something important that was taking place inside this room. So, he was afraid that he might end up getting beaten up for interrupting them. But, he did not have a choice. Whatever information that he possessed was actually more important. What is it? Matthias asked. Although he tried to act irritated, he was actually calm. He was happy that this guy had come over and interrupted them. I have gotten the information that that lady who came over with that group is here. She has come over with another person again. The man responded hurriedly. Huh? Another person? Martha did not help but be a little stunned. He had not expected that while they were looking for Jack and his group, there was actually one of them that was going to come to the Force organization. Additionally, she came over with another person. Could it be that she had brought another superhuman, or a level 9 or 10 ordinary human? Just thinking of it, Matthias could not help but feel his body tremble a little. What is it? The stage 2 superhuman asked. He was already getting impatient that Matthias was already taking a long time at the entrance, instead of just sending away the person that had come over to disrupt their meeting. I have received information about one of the people that was together with that young man. She has come over with another person. I think she's here to register him or her as well, Matthias responded excitedly. It might be troublesome if he went to deal with the issue by himself. But, it was completely different now. After all, currently, there was a superhuman present in the first organization. And, it was not just a single person, but instead, there were actually 2 superhumans that had been sent over. Are you sure about that? If that is the case, what are we waiting here for? Let's go over now before she disappears again. The stage 2 superhuman stated agitatedly. After Samantha and Ivy arrived, they were greeted by a young lady. She was not the one that was there the previous time. They followed the same procedures and they were taken to the testing area. There, Ivy underwent the test in the machine, just like the one that Jack and the rest of the group had used for testing. 1 star appeared before the second star followed.
Samantha was not expecting that there was going to be a third star, considering that Ivy had just taken the serum. So, unless she trained, there was no way that she was going to be able to reach the third star of the ordinary human level.
After a few seconds, the one that was in charge of the test took a step forward and pressed a series of buttons on the machine. After that, Ivy was taken out of the machine. With great expectations in her eyes, she looked at the display screen that was showing the results. Since she actually did not know about the effects of the serum that she had taken, she was immediately excited after realizing that she had become a 2-star ordinary human. When she came to the stronghold domain, she only had the intention of becoming stronger. And, after knowing about the people that were inside the stronghold, there was always the feeling that she wanted to get stronger, even more than she had been planning to. She had always been wishing to become an ordinary human. But, she knew that that was just a dream, something that was not going to happen anytime soon. After all, although she had managed to enter the stronghold domain, that did not imply that she actually qualified to be able to attract the attention of any organization within the stronghold. So, the moment that she realized that she had actually become an ordinary human, and one that was currently at the 2nd star, she was overjoyed. And, it was also during this moment that she finally began realizing just what she had taken. Initially, she had only taken the serum because it was suggested by Daniel. But now, she understood the value of the serum that she had taken. That was something that could not be found outside of the stronghold domain. Samantha looked at the excited Ivy and stated, "You will need to train. After training, you should be able to increase another level to your stars." "Huh? I can become stronger than this?" Ivy, who was just about to say something, was stunned by Samantha's words. She was already excited with the level that she was currently in, so what would happen after she became even stronger than this? That's right. The serum is able to take effect almost instantaneously. But still, for you to be able to absorb all the effects of the serum, you will need to engage into high-intensity training. That way, you should be able to reach the 3rd star of the ordinary human level, Samantha responded. Ivy's eyes shone with excitement after hearing what Samantha had said. Of course, she did not doubt what Samantha had said, considering that, it seemed that Samantha knew almost everything here. It was also during this moment that she finally understood just how much Jack had given her. As for the reason why she had been given this, it was simply because she had spoken up at that time when the mercenaries were about to attack Jack and his group. But in the end, it turned out that Jack and his group did not need her help at all. In fact, if the group of mercenaries attacked, then, they would have been dealt with, perhaps even killed. But in the end, just because she had spoken up, something that was not even needed, she was given something that was capable of changing her life completely. In fact, it had already turned her life around. Now, she did not need to go out of the stronghold anymore. She had already become an ordinary human, so she was now considered a member of the stronghold domain, as long as the registration was completed. "I want to go back so that I can tell Jack thank you," Ivy stated agitatedly. It might be true that this was considered as a compensation for what she had said, but still, it was way too much. Previously, she had the intention of making sure that Jack and his group suffered a loss. But in the end, they allowed her to take something that was able to change her life completely. So, her attitude towards Jack and his group had already changed completely. "I don't think there is a need for you to do that. That was something that can be considered useless to a person like Jack. But anyway, it seems that you are quite unlucky. After all, if you had come over if the store had already developed further, then, you would have gotten something better." Samantha shook her head before she responded. She had some pity towards Ivy. After all, Ivy had gotten excited over getting just to the 2nd star, and was overjoyed after hearing that she was actually capable of reaching the 3rd star. But still, inside the stronghold domain, anybody that was below the superhuman level was considered as cannon fodder. Additionally, since Ivy had already become an ordinary human, her movements would be restricted. She will not be allowed to be able to move between the normal world and the stronghold domain freely as she used to before. Huh? Ivy was dumbfounded after hearing what Samantha had said. It turned out that something that she found to be precious was actually considered useless in the eyes of Jack and his group. Additionally, why was it that she was not informed that the store was going to improve in the future? After all, if she had actually been informed of this, then, she would have only come over during the time that the 1-month period that they had been given to stay inside the stronghold elapsed. But now, she had already taken something from the store, and there was no chance of going back again as the serum was already injected into her body. Although she felt a little dejected, but still, it was better with whatever she had already received. After all, Who could tell that she was going to receive something like this, something that was considered precious within the stronghold, for free? Okay. It is better if we get out of here now. After the registration has been completed, you will be given a communication device. It should be able to enable you to stay within the stronghold, Samantha stated. Of course, since she was a part of the stronghold for many years now, she already knew that it was almost impossible for a normal human to be able to enter the stronghold. But, it was a different matter if the normal human was born inside the stronghold. As for Ivy, Samantha was sure that she came from the normal world. So, that implied that after she entered the stronghold, she had to join an organization. But, until now, she was just a normal human. That implied that, she had not received any resources from anywhere. As for how she was able to enter into the stronghold, that was something that she did not understand, but, she was not going to ask about it anyway. Ivy nodded her head. Although Samantha had said that it was not a must for her to go and thank Jack and his group, she had decided that she had to do that. After all, it was not every day that she was going to be capable of getting the chances like the one that she had now. Additionally, she had already thought of something else. And that was, if possible, she really wanted to join Jack's group. But, if what Samantha had said was true, then, that implied that, her value was not that high, just like the serum that she had taken. But still, she was willing to take a shot in the dark. Not long after, the results had already been integrated into the system, before Ivy was issued her user ID. Of course, the user ID was linked to stronghold number 17. Excitedly, Ivy led the way out of the testing area. But, they were just about to exit the testing area when suddenly, a commotion came from the entrance. And not long after, a group of 5 men arrived. The 5 were wearing black armors, with the 2 that were in front carrying an imposing aura. The moment that Samantha saw them, she was surprised. And in the next moment, she stopped, as she looked at the 2 people. She was wondering what had brought them over. What had made her stop was actually the 2 genetic structures that were on the armor of one of them, and 3 genetic structures on the other person's armor. She herself already knew about this, because she had already seen Phoebe's armor. So, she was completely dumbfounded after realizing that there were actually 2 superhumans in front of her, and, they were both a single stage or 2 above the leader of her previous organization. Oh, there you are. I had almost thought that the 2 of you had left. Anyway, I have something that I want to discuss with you. The one that was wearing an armor with 2 genetic structures took a step forward and spoke to Samantha. Before he came here for the mission, he had already been informed about the group. So, he had seen the video, and that was the reason why he was able to identify Samantha as one of the people within the group that was here for the testing. Samantha frowned a little. She had not expected that these 2 superhumans had actually come over because of her. But, she suddenly had an inkling about the reason why they were here.